Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome back to another Diablo video. Today we are going to be looking at a Necromancer build. I got so sick of watching my friends run around a dungeon, nightmare dungeons, without dying. I was always in the back line, throwing bone spears. I was basically doing nothing but damage, but it was just a repetitive playstyle. I got sick of it. Until this unique drop. So first off, you do need this unique shield. It's called the Lidless Wall. And basically what it does is on a lucky hit, while you have an active Bone Storm, hit an unaffected enemy has a 25% chance, if you have that roll, to spawn an additional storm at your location. And for each active sacrifice bonus, increases the chance by 25%. So since I am not running any minions, I basically have an 85% chance of dropping Bone Storms because I only have a 10% chance on mine, plus the extra 75% from my sacrifices. I'm dropping them at an 85% rate. If you can get the 25% chance, you're going to be dropping them at 100%, and that is what you want. But since I don't have that, I'm going to have to stick with the 85 for now. So the first thing we're going to look at is our skills. So you're going to be picking, for your basic skill, the Bone Splinters, followed by Enhanced Bone Splinters, and then Acolyte's Bone Splinters, just to get that extra 8% critical strike chance. Then you're going to move down to your core skills, where you're going to be picking up 5 ranks into Bone Spear, your Enhanced Bone Spear, and then you're going to go with a Paranormal Bone Spear because you want that increased critical chance. Then you're going to be getting on Alive and Energy, which is going to increase your max essence, and then you're going to get Imperfectly Balanced, which does more damage with your core skills but costs a little more, but that cost does not matter. Then you're going to be getting the Flesh as well, just so bodies will spawn on bosses. So for your next skill, you're going to be picking up Blood Mist, you're going to be picking up Enhanced Blood Mist, and then you're going to be picking up Ghastly Blood Mist. Blood Mist is only going to be used for tight situations where you need to escape. You won't be using it often, but it is nice to have just in case there's a lot of heavy hitter mobs in the dungeons. Now moving down to your curse skills, you're going to be picking up 3 points into Death's Reach, which is going to do more damage to distant enemies. You are going to be away from certain enemies, so this is very good to have. You're going to be picking up Death's Embrace, which does more damage to close enemies, but you also take less damage from them. This is very helpful for this build. Then you're going to be moving down to Amplify Damage, where you do more damage to cursed enemies. This is also very good for this build. And then you're going to be picking up Decrepify, the Enhanced Decrepify, and then the Abhorrent Crepify. This is just very good to have your Bone Storm back up and running. I would highly recommend picking this up. You do need it for this build. Now moving down to the corpse skills, you're going to be picking up Corpse Tendrils, the Enhanced Corpse Tendrils, and the Plagued Corpse Tendrils, just to get that vulnerable damage. There is a disclaimer with this build though. You're going to be using a certain aspect in this build that's going to basically consume all of the corpses around you, and you will not be able to use the Corpse Tendrils. But don't worry, because there is going to be certain aspects that you'll be switching out that you will be able to use it. So just keep use the skill, have it on your hotbar. It is very good for sticky situations. You're also going to be picking up Serration, Compound Fracture, Evulsion, and Rapid Ossification. Once you have all of them, you're going to move on to the ultimate skills. You're going to be picking up Standalone because we have no minions, so you're going to be getting an 18 damage reduction, which is very decent. And then you're going to be picking up Momentum Mori because if you sacrifice your Skeleton Warriors and your Skeleton Mages, you get the 60% buff from your sacrifices. You're also going to be picking up Bone Storm because this is going to be your main thing that keeps you alive. So you're going to be picking up Bone Storm, the Prime Bone Storm, and then Supreme Bone Storm. And then when you come down to your passive, you're just going to be picking up Ossified Essence. This is going to go well with your Bone Spear, your Bone Storm, literally anything that we have on our hotbar that is bones. This is just going to help out, and that is it for the skill tree. So the one unique that you need for this build is the Lidless Wall. Basically what it does is that when you have an active Bone Storm, when you hit an unaffected enemy, it has a certain amount of percentage to drop at their location. So if you have 3 sacrificed minions, so you have your golem, your mages, and your just normal warriors, you will have a 75% base drop rate of the Bone Storms, but then you can get up to another 25%, which makes it 100%. Since I don't have the extra 25%, I only have 10%, my drop rate is 85%, which is very, very good. Even if you only had the extra 5%, a drop rate of 80% is also very good. You can see in the gameplay from my background that it is annihilating, it's always dropping, so you're always going to stay alive. And the one thing that I didn't realize when this first dropped for me is that it says while you have an active Bone Storm. I always thought that it meant the Bone Storm on me. No, if you have a Bone Storm just out in the field, that counts as an active Bone Storm. So you can just keep applying it as much as you want. Even if one's not on you, it still counts as an active Bone Storm, and it is just annihilating. If you combine that with its just basic effects, where you get the damage reduction while a Bone Storm is active, the ones out in the field counts for that. But also your critical strike chance is increased by 20% while Bone Storm is active. That doesn't even mean the one on you, it also means the ones out in the field. Now with this unique, to actually get its ability to activate, you have to get a lucky hit chance. So that's why we're using Bone Spear. Bone Spear has a base lucky hit chance of 50%, but with all of my gear, I got it up to 64%, and you can get this higher if you just have different perks on your gear, but I'm running it with an extra 14%. So I have a 64% chance of getting a lucky hit with Bone Spear. Bone Spear is going to be your primary ability, so when you see a bunch of enemies, just use Bone Spear and that should proc the lucky hit chance, and you'll be able to survive longer in crowds. So now let's move on to the helmet. I'm using a helmet with the aspect of Might. This gives you 20% damage reduction when you use a basic skill, and I have it for 6 seconds. You do use your basic skills quite often just to get your essence back up if you're running low, but also weaving attacks, making a Bone Spear, and then moving on to the Bone Splinters, just going in between both. You will be activating this aspect all the time. It is highly recommendable, and it's just good for damage reduction. You also get I also have cooldown reduction on it, total armor, 4 ranks of Decrepify, and 50 intelligence. The 50 intelligence you don't really need. The Decrepify you also don't need it, but I just have it on it because it's not a bad roll. Total armor would recommend it, and then the cooldown reduction I would recommend that too. Now let's move on to the chest armor. I'm using the aspect of Disobedience. This gives me more armor the more damage I do, stacking up to 30%. This is very good because I'm doing damage all the time using this Bone Storm. You're dropping them everywhere, you're always doing damage, you're always going to have the armor up. I also have Bone Skill damage on it, damage reduction from close enemies, damage reduction, and maximum life. So basically what you want is the damage reduction on this chest piece. More life is always good, and then I have one passive for my bone damage, which is the Bone Skill damage. For my gloves, I'm using the Cadaverous aspect. Consuming a corpse increases the damage of your next core skill by 10% up to 50%. Or core skill is Bone Spear, and you want more damage on the Bone Spear just to get rid of the enemies in front of you. So I would recommend this aspect. I also have 4 ranks of Bone Spear because it just increases the damage. Lucky hit chance, you do want lucky hit chance just to drop them Bone Storms more. Critical strike damage with bone skills, and then critical strike chance. All of those are recommended, but if you can't get them, that's okay. I just would recommend these skills. Now moving on to our pants, we have the aspect of Shield and Storm. This aspect is the reason the lidless wall, it goes so well with this build. So basically you need lidless wall and you need this aspect. They work so well together. So basically Bone Storm damages an enemy, gain a barrier equal to 5% of your base life for 10 seconds. Every time you have a Bone Storm on the field and it damages an enemy, this reapplies to yourself over and over and over again, where when the enemies hit you, you just keep getting it back over and over. This is a must-have for this build, and I would recommend it a lot. So you can also get damage reduction on it, damage reduction from distant enemies, damage reduction while injured, and damage for 4 seconds after killing an elite. The damage reduction while injured is not needed whatsoever. If I could take it off it, I would, but the other ones where it's just basic damage reduction is a must-have. I would recommend it. Now for boots, I'm using the aspect of Explosive Mist. It's really hard to put an aspect on your boots because not many of them benefit. You can get faster, like when you do critical damage, you can get faster movement speed, stuff like that. We're always doing crit damage, but I did feel like the Explosive Mist aspect was nicer in the way that when I used my Blood Mist, I spawn corpses underneath me and then I explode them, which reduces the cooldown. It seems good on paper, but to be honest, I don't really see it working as well as I thought. But to be honest, there's not a lot of aspects you can use on a Necromancer, so I did use this just because I have Blood Mist. I also have cold resistance on it, essence cost reduction. Essence cost reduction is just very good to have. I would recommend it. I also have 4 ranks to corpse tendrils. It's not needed because you're barely using corpse tendrils with this build, but it's also nice to have just the extra 4 ranks to it. And then I have 4 ranks to Bone Spirit. We do not use Bone Spirit at all. You do not need Bone Spirit if you're using this build. If I could take it off these boots, I would, but unfortunately I can't. Now moving on to our weapon. So we use a wand as our weapon because the wand has a 15% lucky hit chance when it's fully upgraded. I'm also using the aspect of splintering. This basically makes our bone spears more powerful because it makes the enemies vulnerable, but also does more damage to the vulnerable enemies. I would highly recommend this kind of wand because you do need a lucky hit chance, and the aspect just goes so well with your bone spheres that it just does a lot of damage. I also have critical strike damage on it because you would like that. Core skill damage because the bone spear is a core skill. Critical strike damage with bone skills. Also, bone skills. And then vulnerable damage. So for our amulet, we're using the aspect of Serration. This aspect basically buffs ossified essence, and we end up doing more damage with our bone skills. I would highly recommend it for this build. We also have essence cost reduction, shadow damage over time. I don't need that perk at all, so I would love to get rid of it. We also have damage, just to get that extra bit of damage. And then we have 3 ranks to compound fracture passive, which is also very good because I'm getting an extra 15% damage from that. Since we're playing on a seasonal character, this season we have hearts. And the heart that I'm using is a vicious heart where I gain 71% critical strike damage, but my non-crits do less damage. I would highly recommend it for this build because we're always doing crit damage. Now for our first ring, we're using the Gale aspect. This aspect makes it that we consume corpses with our Bone Storm. This goes very good with our other aspect where consuming a corpse increases the damage of your next core skill by 10% up to 50%. I would highly recommend putting these 2 aspects together because you're always going to be getting that 50%. This aspect also works with our unique where the bone storms on the field are also consuming corpses, and it basically makes our character have a bone storm for longer. This does glitch out the unique though, because the bone storms that are out in the field are the ones that you need to make sure stay on the field to activate the next bone storm. Because if they go away, the one that's still going around our body won't activate any more bone storms, and you also won't get the barrier from the other aspect, and it basically makes it obsolete. So just watch out for that. But on this ring, I also have critical strike chance, critical strike damage with bone skills, resource regeneration, and then I have critical strike damage. Since we're also playing on a season, we have access to the hearts, which I'm using the brutal heart when at least one enemy is near you. I gain an aura around me, which is Decrepify for 23 seconds. I would highly recommend that because Decrepify gives you damage reduction as well from those enemies. It's just very good to have, especially when you're in the middle of all those enemies. So I would highly recommend this heart. And for our last ring, we're using the sacrificial aspect. Your sacrifice bonuses are increased by 25%. Now, You might think that 25% is huge when realistically it's not, but it is a very nice passive and I would highly recommend it. I also have physical damage. Damage to crowd controlled enemies. This goes very well with our corpse tendrils, which I don't have, but I would recommend it. Critical strike damage and then vulnerable damage. For our heart, I'm using Heart of the Barber. I just want to say that Heart of the Barber with this build doesn't work 100% of the time, because the way the Heart of the Barber works is that when you're damaging an enemy, it absorbs the damage and then explodes. But when it absorbs the damage, it's not spawning the bone storms, which will end up getting you killed quite often. So just keep that in mind. Don't use Heart of the Barber if you can't tank the damage, because it will lead to you dying. Now, if you don't want to use the Gale aspect, you can always use the Grasping Veins aspect, where when you use Corpse Tendrils, you deal more critical strike damage. I would recommend this because without that Gale, you're not consuming the corpses, so there's going to be corpses everywhere, and you will be able to use the corpse tendrils where you'll be able to stun the enemies and do more damage. This also goes well with our Paragon board where you do more damage to crowd control enemies. So if you don't want to consume the bodies, you could always switch it out for the corpse tendrils, which could also save your life. If you want to know as well, I have lucky hit chance on this, critical strike damage with bone skills, physical damage, and critical strike damage. The gems we use for our gear are rubies for our helmet, our chest piece, and our pants, an emerald for our weapon, and then a diamond for our shield. This is just to help out our barrier generation, our critical strike damage to vulnerable enemies, and our maximum life is increased. Now I'm going to show you the Paragon board. I did use Echo Hack's Paragon board, and I will be switching this up later on when I reach level 100, and I will be making a new video showing the potential of this build at level 100 with my own Paragon board. But for now, I'm just going to show you what he did with his. So you're going to start from the starter node, and you're going to go up and get the rare node. You're going to go up and put in the glyph control, which is going to give you more damage to crowd controlled enemies. If you're using the corpse tendrils instead of the consuming bodies, this is going to be very good. You're going to grab the rare node next to that and the rare node next to that. Then you're going to go up to your second board. So the second board is going to be Bone Graft, and you're going to make sure Bone Graft is to your right, and you're going to go over to it straight away. When you pick that up, you're going to get the rare node, and then you're going to come back down, and you're just going to continue up until you get to the next node. Then you're going to go to the next node above that, and then you're going to go over to the glyph, where you're going to slot Exploit, where you're going to do more damage to vulnerable enemies. Once you've done that, you're going to go up to the next rare node, and once you get that, you're going to move on to the next board. Now the next board is Scent of Death. With Scent of Death, you want it directly in the middle, going down a little. So once you get that, you're going to move on over to this rare node. You're going to get it, get more damage, and then you're going to continue up. You're going to get this rare node where you get more armor, and then you're going to get the glyph where you do more damage while you're healthy. This is very good because you're always going to be healthy. You're always going to be using potions, so don't worry. You're going to be using this one a lot. I would highly recommend it. Once you have that, you're going to go over to this rare node, you're going to pick it up, and then you're going to go down to the legendary node. Once you have this node, you're going to go over to the rare node next to it, and then you're going to go back up to where the glyph is, make your way back up to the next board. Now the next board is the Flesh Eater board. Once you have that rotated where the Flesh Eater legendary node is in the middle, you're going to come back down, and you're going to make your way up to the glyph. The glyph is going to be sacrificial, where magic nodes around you are increased, and you're just going to grab these damage magic nodes because they're very good for your build, and then you're going to make your way up to the next rare node, and then you're going to pick up the legendary node. This legendary node is very good for when you're actually using the aspect where you consume bodies, because you're always going to have that 40% increased damage. And once you have that, you're going to make your way back down to the glyph, and you're just going to make your way over to the next board, where the next board you're going to be able to slot Essence, where you're going to be able to get more critical damage. This is going to be the last thing you do in the next board. You're not even going to go near the legendary node. You're only going to slot this. As I said, when I reach level 100, I will be doing an update where I'll be showing what the build is like at level 100, and I'll be showing you my Paragon board because I will be tweaking it where I'm able to take more damage and still be able to do decent damage. But until then, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you can see the next video where I show this build, and I'll talk to y'all later. Thank you and goodbye.